To all the souls seeking silence in the night, this is Silent Night Narrator. Tonight, as the world drifts into slumber and the rain taps gently on your window, let this true tale guide you into a darker realm, where the line between what is and what might be becomes unclear. Breathe in, relax, but don't close your eyes too quickly. For sometimes, true fear whispers right at the edge of your dreams. The attic apartment and the echoes of time. Alex, a young photographer searching for fresh inspiration and a quiet escape from the city's noise, came across a strange attic apartment. It sat atop an old building, constructed in the early 20th century, tucked away in a tranquil alley of a historic neighborhood. The apartment featured large windows with a panoramic view of the city, bathed in natural light, something Alex longed for in his photos. The rent was surprisingly reasonable, not so low that it seemed suspicious, but just enough to feel like he had stumbled upon a hidden gem. From the moment he stepped inside, Alex sensed an unusual stillness filling the space. It wasn't the peaceful silence of good insulation. It was a kind of deep, stifling quiet, as though even the air was holding its breath. His footsteps, which should have echoed on the old wooden floor, were strangely muffled, as if he were walking on cotton. Even the sound of his suitcase hitting the floor felt muted and faint. It's just the age and space, he told himself, trying to shake off the creeping unease. The first few days passed in a blur of unpacking. Alex began taking test photos, exploring how the light interacted with the space. He noticed a few odd things, small and hard to explain. A picture frame he swore he'd placed in one corner would show up in another. A book he left on the table would end up tilted on the floor. At first, he blamed it on his own absent-mindedness, or his artistic mind seeking the mysterious in everyday life. One afternoon, while cleaning out the storage closet, Alex found a large, old piece of hand-embroidered fabric. Not a mirror, but something equally strange. The cloth was faded with age and covered in abstract spirals and bizarre shapes he'd never seen before. When his fingers touched the embroidery, a sudden chill raced down his spine. Not the cold of the material, but something deeper. He felt a whisper from the past, a distant echo, laughter, whispers, even soft cries, coming from nowhere. He brought the cloth into the living room, drawn by its strange pull. From then on, the disturbances intensified. They were no longer small annoyances. While drawing or editing photos, Alex began seeing ghosts of memories. Not ghosts as in figures of the dead, but flickers. Blurry fragments of time looping in front of his eyes. A hand brushing past the curtain. A child dashing through the hallway. The sudden flash of an old camera. At first, Alex thought he was overworked, but the images became clearer, too clear, accompanied by whispers in languages he couldn't understand. Then he realized the apartment wasn't just quiet, it was swallowing time. Clocks in the room would go haywire, speeding up by hours or slowing down unpredictably. Time felt distorted inside the apartment. One morning, Alex went into the bathroom. What felt like minutes later, he stepped out to find the sun high in the sky. The wall clock showed it was already past noon. He was losing track of time, literally. Terrified, he decided to leave. He called the landlord, canceled his lease, and booked a train. But every attempt to leave was mysteriously blocked. His car wouldn't start. The apartment keys vanished and reappeared in his pocket after he'd missed his train. One time, just as he reached the front door of the building, something shoved him back. He couldn't leave. Desperate, Alex began researching the building's history. At the city library, He unearthed dusty archives and learned that the structure had once been a famous photography studio in the 1930s. Later, it became a small theater, then a residential complex. The building had seen countless lives, bursts of joy, despair, longing. But the attic apartment, it always had strange stories tied to it. People who lived there spoke of warped time, of echoes from the past, and of not being able to leave. Some texts even mentioned an entity, the being of forgetting, a shapeless, invisible creature born from abandoned moments, from memories left behind. It had claimed the attic as its home, feeding on the energy of forgotten time, sustaining the apartment's unnatural silence and isolation. Alex realized the ghosts he saw weren't spirits. They were emotional imprints, fragments of powerful memories, not dead people, but trapped moments. They weren't evil. They were sorrowful, desperate to be remembered. And he believed the old embroidered cloth was a kind of memory gate, an artifact that had absorbed too many of these echoes. One night, while reviewing photos he had taken inside the apartment, Alex made a startling discovery. His photos of inanimate objects glowed with emotion. An old chair seemed to radiate nostalgia. Sunlight streaming through a window evoked a lost afternoon, and he remembered the whisper he'd once heard. Look. Understand. He understood now. He didn't need to fight the entity. He needed to liberate the trapped memories. Alex began a new photography project. He didn't just take pictures, he captured feelings. He recreated emotions embedded in these fractured moments. He shot the sunset's glow on the wooden floor, trying to convey peace and loss. He painted laughter, abstract images inspired by forgotten joy. And each time he completed a piece, a warmth spread through the apartment. The suffocating silence loosened its grip. The embroidery cloth began to glow. Its symbols became clearer, a story unfolding. But as Alex freed more memories, the entity grew angry. The apartment fought back. Walls shifted. Photos flew. Objects shattered. Time spun wildly. Sometimes Alex was pulled into visions, past tragedies the apartment had witnessed. The entity wasn't just scared, it was starving. It didn't want the memories freed. They were its food. The final confrontation happened during a full moon. The apartment shook violently, like an earthquake. The being of forgetting manifested fully, a swirling mass of darkness, absorbing light and sound. A void. Alex knew he had to release the final memory, the core fragment that had birthed this prison. He looked at the embroidered cloth, now radiant, and he saw it. A self-portrait of an old artist, eyes full of despair, a shattered camera at his feet. This man had been the apartment's first tenant, and his forgotten pain had birthed the entity. Alex raised his camera, faced the darkness, and understood. He poured into the photo not fear, but empathy, acceptance, hope. Click. The shutter snapped like a thunderclap. The darkness trembled and then collapsed inward, trapped in the image. It wasn't destroyed. It was transformed into a memory, no longer a curse. Blinding light filled the room. Alex felt himself torn apart, then stitched back together. When the light faded, the apartment was calm. No more strange noises. No more crushing silence. The embroidery glowed like a map of time. Alex was changed. He could now see time, feel its flow, hear forgotten voices, not with fear, but compassion. He stayed, not because he was trapped, but because he had become a story keeper, a protector, a guide for memory. Each morning, sunlight pouring in, Alex would lift his camera, not just capturing beauty, but lost moments, unspoken emotions. and he knew there were more stories waiting, and he was the one who would tell them. Sometimes he still hears soft whispers, but they are not cries for help anymore. They are thank yous, laughter, and the sound of time finally being set free. Sleep well tonight. And if you hear footsteps next door, just remember, it's only the rain. But if, when the story ends, you still hear it falling, know this: